What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. It's time for my Week 11 Top 25. And earlier today, I did my projection for what I think the College Football Playoff Committee is going to do. Also showed you what I think they should do, what the playoff ranking should look like. So if you missed that video, you can go back and check it out. So what we're doing now the rest of the season with my top 25, it's just simply about which team would win. If the teams played head-to-head this weekend on a neutral field, who do I think would win? And that's all it is. Record doesn't matter. Resume doesn't matter. It's just simply how the teams are playing right now. Because I wanted to do something a little bit different than, what the playoff rankings are looking like and the resumes and all that. So we're just basing this off of how the teams are playing right now. So it's almost like a power ranking. And so you're going to see some things that will obviously look a lot different than what the playoff rankings look like. So let's start at the top. I'm going to start at the top because I think that just works better when we're talking about teams beating other teams. And it doesn't always work because different teams match up in different ways. But this is how I've got my top 5. So I think Georgia is clearly the best team in the country. I think that they would beat anyone right now. And I don't even think that there's much of an argument for that. I believe that Tennessee would be that number, or Michigan, I should say, would be that number 2 team. I believe they would beat Tennessee, and I still think they're going to beat Ohio State. The teams that are more physical at the line of scrimmage, can run the ball, can stop the run, like Georgia and like Michigan. Michigan not as good as Georgia, but I think they're similar. I just think those teams have an advantage. We saw it last year with Michigan, Ohio State. And with Ohio State, when the conditions aren't great, when things get tough, they just don't play very well. And you talk about that game coming up, it's going to be a big game. But, if it's snowing, if it's really cold, whatever the conditions are in that game, that's another thing that would lean me more towards Michigan in that one. That's why I've been saying that I thought Michigan would win that game. So I think the styles of Georgia and Michigan would just win against Tennessee and Ohio State. That's why I have Georgia and Michigan ahead of Tennessee and Ohio State. It's close for me. I mean, I'm not going to say Ohio State couldn't beat Michigan or Ohio State couldn't beat Tennessee. I have Tennessee ahead of Ohio State just because I think their offense is a little bit more explosive, and I really like their run defense, their ability to stop the run, something Ohio State is struggling with right now. Northwestern, they knew they were going to run the football, and they still were able to have some success against this Ohio State defense. So I still think Ohio State's a great team, but for me, if I'm going to say who would win right now if these teams are playing, I would go Georgia, then Michigan, then Tennessee, then Ohio State, and then Oregon at number 5. This team is playing great football. I wish we could see them play against better competition, but I think Georgia or Oregon might be the number 2 team behind Georgia. This team, again, it's hard to say for sure because of the competition they've been playing, but man, they've been rolling. Bo Nix looks great. The defense looks great. This is just a really good football team. And it's possible that Oregon's the second best team in the country right now. It really is. But I just, I can't say that for sure. I don't know without seeing them play some better teams. They'll have Utah coming up. And then, of course, a Pac-12 championship game. So we'll find out for sure if Oregon is a great team this year, if they're a top 5 team. Or maybe they're overrated. Maybe it's just because they played some pretty bad teams in the Pac-12. Of course, they do have the win over UCLA, and they looked really good in that game. So that's what my top 5 would look like if the teams played this weekend on a neutral field. Obviously, plenty of debate about these matchups, about who would win, but it's just my opinion. So it is what it is. Let's go to 6 through 10. I think LSU would be next. LSU would even beat Oregon. Again, it's kind of tough to say when we haven't seen Oregon play a lot of great teams, and we've seen LSU rise up and play some, beat Ole Miss, beat Alabama. This team is playing really good football right now. So maybe LSU should be even higher, but I'm going to give Oregon the benefit of the doubt, and based off of the way they've been playing, I think they would beat LSU in a close one. Then TCU at number 7. I think TCU would beat Alabama, but I still have Alabama at number 8. This is still a really good team, and I think Bryce Young's the best player in the country. I mean, without him, where would Alabama be? They would have 4 losses without Bryce Young. I mean, he has carried this team really for the last 2 years. He did it last year as well when they had all their struggles. This is still a really good team, still a physical defense. I think they would beat most teams in the country, even though they do have 2 losses. I really like this UCLA team at number 9. The only loss coming to Oregon, but other than that, they've really looked good. Both sides of the ball, they're playing good football. I mean, it's just ridiculous that the committee has them down below USC. I mean, I think UCLA is going to beat USC, especially the way USC has been playing lately. And so I think, my rankings reflect that. I think this is a very good team. And then number 10 is Notre Dame. So yes, I have a 3-loss team in my top 10. If you're going by the resume, no, they shouldn't be in the top 10. But the way they're playing right now, they are playing like a top 10 team. They dominated against Syracuse, dominated against Clemson. They have finally figured it out. They've kind of simplified things a little bit, and they're just going out there and playing football. And that defense is getting better and better and better. You just had to give Marcus Freeman a little bit of time. Of course, they have the 2 bad losses. I mean, Marshall and Stanford, bad losses. If they had just found a way to win those 2 games, we'd be talking about Notre Dame as a playoff contender right now. And I think that they have proven that they are right now playing as one of the best teams in the country. I've got them at number 10. I think UCLA would beat them, but it will be close. I think that will be a really good matchup. So let's go now to 11 through 15. Texas at number 11. This is a tough team to rank because they've been so inconsistent. And I think that's what you get when you have a young quarterback like Quinn Ewers. When they're playing at their best, they're a top 10 team. When they're playing at their worst, they're not a top 25 team. So where do you rank Texas? Well, I'm just going to say if they're playing close to their best, I think they would beat Clemson and Penn State, Florida State, Utah. I think they would beat these teams. If they're playing their absolute best, I'd probably put them up there ahead of Alabama because we saw in that game, if they had Ewers the whole game, they probably would have won that game. So Texas, I'm kind of putting them in the middle here, so I'm going with number 11. Clemson at number 12. I know they just got embarrassed by Notre Dame, but this is still a pretty good football team. I mean, you just have to look at what they've done all year. They had a bad game, but I mean, they played horrible against Syracuse and were still able to win. So this is still a talented team, a good team. Quarterback position, I think that's where they're lacking. They're not getting that great play from the quarterback spot, and without that, they're not a top 10 team. So I've got them at number 12. Penn State at number 13. This is a good football team. We haven't really seen them outside of the Michigan-Ohio State game. We haven't seen them play any really good teams, and I think that's just mostly because the Big Ten's not very good this year outside of those top few teams. And so this is another team that's kind of hard to figure out exactly where they line up. We know that they're behind Michigan and Ohio State, pretty far behind them, but where do they line up with the rest of these teams? They obviously are much better than Auburn, but we haven't seen them play any of these mid-level teams, really. So that's kind of a tough one to figure out. I've got them at 13. Florida State at 14. Big-time underrated, in my opinion, by the playoff committee. They should have been ranked last week. I believe they will be ranked this week. But this is a team that lost 3 close games to pretty good teams. I mean, good teams. Clemson, Wake Forest, NC State. Had a chance really in all of those games. Really should have beat NC State. I mean, they had that game. Wake Forest, they did lose, I think, by 10 and had to come back against Clemson. But they have the win over LSU. They just obliterated Miami this past weekend. Florida State is playing good. They've got a lot of momentum right now. I've got Utah at number 15. This is a team that has that big win over USC. Playing at home, they're really good. But they did lose to Florida earlier in the year. So this is another team that we haven't seen them play a lot of comparable teams. USC, we've seen them play them. They did lose to UCLA. Let's see them play Oregon. I think that'll give us kind of that third data point to really figure out where Utah is. But I've got them at number 15. I think that's fair. At 16, I've got Kansas State. Tough loss to Texas, but they got the good Texas. I mean, they got the good Texas. They almost came back and won that game. Really, really good effort to come back. This is still a good football team. I've got them at 16, ahead of Ole Miss. Ole Miss, interesting game coming up against Alabama. We'll see what they do in that one. I still have some question marks about this team. The defense, not great this year. And Jackson Dart just not hitting the big plays in the pass game, where that's something that they had before. But they're really able to run the football. I mean, this is a good team. USC at number 18, they have struggled the last couple of weeks against really pretty bad teams. And so I don't, USC not playing great right now. Louisville at number 19, this is a team that's been getting better and better. They've got a lot of momentum. NC State at number 20. No Devin Leary, no problem. They beat Wake Forest. They figured things out, and they're a talented team. They've proven that they can win without him. And then we go to the bottom, 21 through 25. North Carolina, number 21, just because of that offense. You see them play a Liberty team. That's going to be a shootout. I tend to go towards North Carolina. That will be a great game, great matchup if they were to play. Liberty, I mean, look at what they did to Arkansas. That was an impressive performance. Really, both sides of the ball. They they dominated that game. I know it wound up being close late, but that was a really nice win for Liberty. I think they proved themselves. Baylor beat Oklahoma this past weekend. This is another team that's getting better and better. Watch out for the Bears. They might even could sneak into the Big 12 championship if they can finish strong. And then I finish it up here with Tulane and UCF. Two good teams out of the American. I think Tulane probably wins on Saturday. They're playing at home on a neutral field. It's really a toss-up, but I just wanted to throw them in there at 24 and 25. So how would you rank the teams if you were going to rank them like I am ranking them, just based off of who would beat who? How would you rank these teams? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you for watching this video, and stay tuned for more here on the SG1 Sports College Football Channel.